Hello guys, Tarzan Father Choose Spotter here, and today I'm going to be doing a rant on this person who I can't fucking stand. I'm pretty sure everyone in Britain knows exactly who this person I'm talking about is. You can tell by what it says on the screen. Jon Venables. The video is going to be called Reasons Why Jon Venables Should Not Be Released from Prison. Now, for those of you who don't know who Jon Venables is, Jon Venables is a criminal. He's a criminal. He's a murderer, and later on he became a pedophile. Now, back in 1993, on this day, 12th of February, 1993, 30 years ago, Jon Venables and his friend, Robert Thompson, they ditched school. They escaped from school, and they sneaked into a strand called Bootle New Strand, which is in Liverpool. And they were doing pretty much mischievous crimes like shoplifting. They were doing shoplifting. They stole loads of stuff, loads of batteries, sweets, and toys and that. Then they became bored, and one of them said, "You know what? Let's find a kid. Let's take a kid." So they looked all over the shopping mall. It's a really large shopping mall. And they found a kid, and that kid's name was James Bulger. And they found James Bulger. They found him. He was standing outside the butcher shop with his mum. James went to the shop with his mum because mum wanted to buy stuff for dinner, and James was actually outside the butcher shop. And two of the kids came towards James, and they were telling him to go with them. I say, come on, let's go, let's go. They're talking to him, and James actually went with them. And James was 2 years old. He was only 2. He's 2 years old. And Jon Venables and Robert Thompson were 10. 10 years old. They were 10. And they both left the shopping centre, and this is where they took him to a canal, and this is where they start literally beating the living shit out of this kid. They tried to throw him into the canal, but they didn't. So they actually picked him up and just threw him, dropped him on the floor, and he suffered injuries to his face. Bulger had a bump on his head, and he started crying. And walking across Liverpool with James crying. He wanted to go back to his mum, and the kids were dragging this kid across the road, across the pavement, with everyone watching. They were seen by 38 people. Both kids were seen by 38 people in Liverpool, in the Liverpool area. They all seen him dragging this kid across the road and started kicking him as they go. And here's the part that pisses me off. They didn't even intervene. None of them intervened. None of them stopped them. Because they believed that James was their little brother, and a little brother or maybe their cousin, and they didn't think anything of it. Once they took him further into town, one of the members of the public went up to James, Robert and John, and they said to him, "Why is the kid crying? Why has he got a bump in his head?" And the kids were like, "Oh, we're taking him to the police station because he was lost." And I noticed that he had a bruise and a bump on his head. And they said, "Oh, he fell over." He fell over. That's why. He fell over. That's why he got a bump on his head. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't fell over. You lot grabbed him and threw him to the fucking floor. That's why he's got a bump on his head. He didn't fall over by himself. Yes, yeah, 2-year-old kids can be clumsy, but James didn't fall over though. They made him fall over. And the members of the public said to him, you know, take him to Walton Lane police station, the police station, so they can take him in. So they took him. So the boys took James to that path. Then they decided to beat him up again. So they took him to a railway line. And this is where they started to beat the living shit out of him. They took some blue paint that the boys have shoplifted. They took it out of their pocket, and they threw it into his eye. They poured it or flicked it into James's face. They chucked bricks at him. They chucked stones at him. They kicked him. They stomped on him. Jumped on him. Kicked him. Threw stones and bricks at him. They placed batteries in his mouth, which I'm not sure if it's AA batteries, AAA batteries, or maybe a 9-volt battery. I'm not sure which batteries. I don't know what batteries they use, but all I know they use batteries. They put it in his mouth. And they took a railway fish plate from the track, the railway fish plate, and he actually just hit. They struck him on the head, struck him on the head with a fish plate. And then to top it all off, they laid his body on a railway line, weighed his head down with rubble, weighed his feet down as well, so he couldn't get up, and they went home. As the boys went home, a train came, and the train ran over his body, hit his body, and the wheels of the train cut James in half. The train sliced his body in half like as if you're cutting a knife into cake. That is the most brutal, cruel way to kill a kid. Like, I'm raging. Like, what on earth does that to a child? Like, who takes someone else's child from a strand and take him to a railway line and literally beat the living shit out of his kid? And they're the kids themselves. So that's what Jon Venables done to, and his friend did to James. They were both sentenced. They pleaded guilty in 1993. They were pleaded guilty to the abduction and murder of James Bulger. And the sentencing really pisses me the frick off. They were sentenced to 8 years in prison. 8 years. That it. For murder. 8 years. 8 years in prison. That it. What? And then James Bulger's mum and dad have to spend a lifetime without their son with this horror. People like him, Jon Venables and Robert Thompson, they should be sentenced to frickin' life. They should be sentenced to frickin' life. If that was me, like I'm 21 years old. I'm 21. If I go to Walthamstow Mall or Westfield, take someone and I snatch a 2-year-old from the shopping mall and take him to Stratford Station or Walthamstow Central Station, put him on a railway line, I'll be doing life in prison. I'll be doing life in prison with pretty much no parole. No parole at all. Or I'll get a whole life tariff. If that was an adult who murdered James. If that was a grown-up that murdered James, they'll be sentenced to life. But since those kids were 10, sorry, they were sentenced to 8. They weren't sentenced to prison. They weren't sent to prison. They were sent to juvie because they're under the age of 18. They're underage, so they were sent to juvie. So they were sent to juvie and they spent 8 years in prison for murder. I'm just disgusted with what those two boys, Jon Venables and Robert Thompson, did to that kid. In 2001, Venables and Thompson, they were released from prison. They were given new identities. Basically, they were given new passports, new driving licenses. Like if they get a driving license, they'll have to have a different name. They can't have Jon Venables on it. It has to be a different name. National insurance numbers with different names on it, so they can get a job and stuff. Like, you know, and that's expensive. It costs like £250,000, I believe, just to get their identities changed, to keep their identities hidden, their anonymities hidden. And I think that's bullshit. Why give them new identities? And Jon Venables, he was recalled to prison for you know, telling everyone who he really is. Like, you know, the kid who murdered a 2-year-old boy from Liverpool named James Bulger? That's me. He got arrested for that. Because if you committed a crime, if you got a new identity, if you committed a crime, you're not allowed to tell anyone who you really are. You're not allowed to contact with another person that is involved with the murder. Like Jon Venables can't contact Robert Thompson, and Robert can't contact John. They can't see each other. They're sentenced to both different prisons. And yeah, and people and everyone of the public can't, you know, tell everyone that the person is actually the killers, because they can get arrested too, which I think that's bullshit. Like, in my opinion, Jon Venables and Robert Thompson, they shouldn't be given new identities. They shouldn't be given new identities. If that was me, a 21-year-old man, let's say I do get released from prison for killing a kid on the railway line. If I get released from prison, they wouldn't give me a new identity. They will never give me a new identity. I have to walk away out of prison, and I'll run the risk of getting attacked and beaten up by the public for killing a kid. Because it's Jon Venables and Robert Thompson, they were 18 years old when they were released from prison. They were 18. They were adults when they were released from prison. And they were given new identities, which is bullshit. And Jon Venables, he was sentenced to prison again for a new and grotesque crime: downloading and distributing indecent images of children. Basically, he got arrested for downloading indecent images of kids on his computer. Downloading pictures, looking at little kids on his computer. And he got arrested for that. Now, because of that, he was given a new identity for that. Are you having a laugh, Colt? Are you having a laugh? So whenever Jon Venables gets whenever Jon Venables reoffends, they'll give him a new identity for it. What the hell? Why are you giving him a brand new identity? Why are you giving him a brand new passport and stuff? Like, he shouldn't be given a new identity. Like, it's absolutely bullshit. I think the freaking justice system, this justice system, I think is a fucking joke. I think they failed James Bulger's family because they're taking good care of this fucking of his killer. They're looking after this killer. They're pampering the killer. Venables and Thompson too, they were both pampered in prison. They were pampered. They weren't punished, they were pampered. You shouldn't give him. You shouldn't sentence him to 8 years in the first place. You should have sentenced him to life. And now Venables is a fucking paedophile. He shouldn't be released from prison. After his first offence of looking at kiddie porn on his computer, he was released from prison on new identities. Then, sorry, in 2017, or maybe later than that, he was arrested again for the same crime. Downloading indecent images of children. Again. Like, Jon Venables, have you ever learned? Have you ever learnt what you did? Have you learnt what you learnt? Have you ever learnt? Do you ever learn? I don't think they ever learn. And what's going to happen now? That's right, a new identity. Why? The justice system and the government are wasting their fucking money just to take care of this nonce. A nonce / child killer. Like, why? Oh, because he's got human rights. What human rights? He hasn't got human rights. What about James Bulger's human rights? What about James Bulger? Oh wait, he killed the kid. You know what I mean? That's Jon Venables should not be released from prison. He should stay in prison. Like, don't even bother releasing him. Don't release him. Because we don't want him on our streets. Because Jon Venables, he should stay in prison until he rots. He should stay there. And I'm sorry I have to say this, but I don't give a shit. He should stay there until he dies. He should stay there until he dies. Because that's how much I hate him. And Robert Thompson, I don't know about Robert Thompson. I'm not sure, because he's not on the news. And I don't think he's on the media that much. Robert Thompson, he hasn't reoffended. I believe they said on the media that Robert Thompson, he was educated himself. He passed his GCSEs and that, and he's got a partner. He's got a wife. He's got a partner. He has a wife, and they say he's got kids of his own. Like, he's doing well in his life, but still, he's still a prick. Thompson's still a prick. But Venables, whew, I don't know what to say, guys. But if you say you're going to release Jon Venables, don't you fucking dare. Don't you dare release Jon Venables. Because if I tell you what, yeah, if you keep releasing that freaking nonce and freaking child killer, you have failed. That means you failed James Bulger and his family. I feel bad for James Bulger's mum. I feel bad for James Bulger's dad. James Bulger's auntie, uncle. I feel bad for them. And I certainly feel bad for James. He did not ask for this. He didn't deserve to be abducted and freaking beaten up and die on a truck. Once again, guys, he was 2 years old. He's 2. 2. Old enough to... 2. He could be their freaking... He could be their little brother. If they were their little brother, you wouldn't beat them up, won't you? Look, yeah, Jon Venables should... He should not be released from prison. He should stay in prison. He will stay in prison for the rest of his life, yeah? And those freaking new offences he's doing, downloading decent images of children shit, yeah, keep him in prison. Anyways, guys, that's the end of this rant, yeah? That's all I've got to say about this cunt named Jon Venables. Yeah, he should stay in fucking prison. He should not be released from prison. And for Thompson, if he reoffends, oh, for fuck's sake. but I don't know. Anyways, guys, this system's a fucking joke. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Denise, well, that's James Bulger's mum's name. I feel so bad for you that you have to go through this back 30 years ago in 1993, that you lost your son. Your son was murdered by those bastards. I just feel bad. I mean, she's on social media. Her name is Denise Fergus. Follow her. Please follow her on... I think she's on Facebook. Follow her on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And, hello? Yeah, I was making a video. Sorry, it's my mum. Yeah, if you want to follow, Denise Fergus, it's on the description below if you want to follow her. Yeah. Yeah, show the James Bulger family support. Anyway, guys, I want to end the video because I think my mum just knocked on the door. So, anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys next time, and goodbye.